I ruled a kingdom built on blood and betrayal, where love was a weapon and loyalty a lie. I operated with hands caked in the grime of despair, while the stench of rot filled the air. My heart was a cauldron of ambition, but I was haunted by one ghost, a son. Today, I dare to unveil the dark secrets of my reign, secrets that turned a king into a tyrant and a crown into a prison. When I first took the crown, I was blinded by the brightness of its gold. Catherine, my first queen, was everything I had ever wanted. Yet, she bore me only a daughter. In my eyes, that was a sin greater than treason. How could I secure my legacy in a world ruled by men? The echoes of disappointment filled our chambers. I felt her heartbreak as palpable as the cold stone beneath our feet. The clinking of goblets, the warmth of flickering candles. But beneath it, the coldness of my growing frustration. I looked upon my wife's face, so full of strength, yet I could see she was crumbling under my unyielding gaze. But that was nothing compared to what happened next. In the depths of desperation, I tore apart the very fabric of England's faith. I broke from Rome, an act of defiance wrapped in love's cruel guise. I sought the divine right to annul my marriage, a desperate gamble waged on the altar of power. The church wept as I eroded its walls, but I felt like a surgeon wielding a scalpel of ambition. Only blood would ensure my survival. The suffocating tension, incense thick in the air, the sweat running down my brow. I was a king, yes, but a man obsessed with legacy. Would I be remembered as a fool or a ruler who reshaped a nation? I wanted more than a throne. I craved immortality. Anne Boleyn came to me like a flame, fierce and intoxicating. My heart raced, believing she could bear me a son. Yet, like a candle snuffed out by the winds of fate, her pregnancy ended in silence. My love turned to suspicion, and whispers of treason filled the air. A cruel twist of fate kept me awake at night, haunted by the thought of her betrayal. The cold steel of a blade, the sharp scent of iron in the air, a shock of betrayal. The day I ordered her execution, I felt no joy but a heavy, relentless ache. I watched her head fall and I realized, in my quest for a legacy, I had become the very monster I feared. Then came Jane, a breath of fresh air in my decaying world. She offered me solace, a promise of a son. When she gave birth to Edward, my heart swelled with pride. Finally, my legacy was secure. But life is a fickle mistress, and she slipped away like sand through my fingers, leaving me to mourn a love that was never truly mine. The silence in the chamber, the chill of loss, wrapping around me like shadows. Death was my only constant companion, whispering sweet nothings in my ear. I felt like a king atop a crumbling tower, my foundation eroding, my dreams fading into darkness. Catherine Howard was a breath of youth in my decaying court. She dazzled me, a jewel among the rubble. But beauty is often deceptive, and I learned the hard way that innocence can hide treachery. When I discovered her infidelities, I felt the blade of betrayal cut deeper than any sword, the heat of anger coursing through me, my fists clenched, the smell of sweat and fear. I ordered her execution with a heavy heart, yet the thrill of power surged through my veins. I had become a tyrant, a shadow of the king I once aspired to be. And in those moments, I lost myself completely. At last, Catherine Parr arrived, more nurse than lover. As my body swelled with decay, she stood by me, a torchbearer in my darkened world. I saw in her the reflection of my failures, a man who had sacrificed everything for a fleeting legacy. The scent of sickness, the weight of remorse pressing on my chest as my body failed me. I feared the ghosts of my past, the specters of those I had betrayed. Every whisper of the wind echoed with their names, and I understood the price of power. I was a king surrounded by the remnants of my choices. But it wasn't just the blood on my hands that haunted me. It was the emptiness of my reign. I left behind a fractured kingdom, a son too weak to rule, and daughters divided by faith. In the end, I became not a king of glory, but a tyrant of shadows. As my body sank into the darkness, I couldn't escape the memories. Each of my wives, once vibrant with dreams, now faded into the fabric of my history like ghosts. My name would be remembered, yes, but what would it mean? A legacy built on broken promises and shattered lives. Each marriage, a gamble lost in the game of power. Catherine, Anne, Jane, Catherine, and one more, their names haunted me still. Each one had held a piece of my heart. And yet, I cast them aside in my relentless pursuit of a male heir. Their laughter had echoed through the halls, replaced now by silence, the silence of my own making. What would they say if they could rise from the ashes of my tyranny? Would they curse me? Or would they understand the desperation that drove me? I envisioned them, standing in judgment, their voices a chorus of sorrow and anger. Would I be the villain in their story, or the tragic hero who sought to change the course of history? As I lay there, surrounded by the shadows of my past, the weight of my choices pressed down on me. I saw flashes of their lives, moments of joy overshadowed by the darkness of my ambition. With each heartbeat, I felt the tight grip of regret, a noose tightening around my throat. And in those final moments, the truth became clear. My hunt for immortality had led me to this lonely end. I had sacrificed love, trust, and loyalty at the altar of power. The crown I wore glimmered with blood, but I could feel its coldness chilling my very soul. In the twilight of my life, I realized the stark truth. Legacy is not built through bloodshed, but through love and sacrifice. And yet, here I lay, a king who had lost it all in his quest for a name etched in history. I had become my own executioner, the architect of my downfall. So what now? As the darkness closed in around me, I sought solace in understanding. Perhaps there was still hope, even in the shadows. Perhaps, in the embrace of death, I could find redemption for the lives I had touched and tormented. What if my story could serve as a warning for those who would follow? A lesson in the futility of power without compassion. As I breathed my last, I knew my story would not end here. The echoes of my reign would ripple through time, a cautionary tale of love lost and power corrupted. Would I be remembered only as a tyrant? Or could my legacy serve as a mirror for future generations? Would the blood I spilled eventually water the seeds of understanding, empathy, and change? In the end, I had written my own tragedy, one that would haunt the halls of history for centuries to come. But maybe, just maybe, beneath the weight of my sins, there lay a glimmer of hope. In the shadow of death, I found the desire for life, a yearning for a legacy painted not in blood, but in the lessons learned from my mistakes. If this story haunts you as much as it haunts me, subscribe to hear the next chapter of this tragic tale. In the shadows of death, I found a haunting truth about life itself. Join me next time as we unravel more secrets of a bygone era. As I lay in the dark, surrounded by a desolate silence, the faces of my past emerged like specters, haunting my thoughts. The weight of their memories pressed against me, their laughter and tears echoing in the empty halls of my mind. Each queen, each lover, had been a flicker of light in my otherwise shadowy existence. Catherine of Aragon, my steadfast companion, had stood by my side as the world crumbled around us. Yet, I found her strength suffocating. Her unwavering loyalty became a reminder of my own failures. I watched her face dim with each passing year. The vibrant spirit I had once admired now dulled by disappointment and heartbreak. In that moment, I understood the true cost of my ambition. I had cast her aside, tearing the fabric of our union in pursuit of a fleeting legacy. With every decision made, I had chipped away at her dignity, her love, until nothing remained but a hollow shell of the woman who once held my heart. Anne, bright and sharp-witted, had been my desire incarnate. Her defiance ignited a fire in me, pushing me to seek more than just a male heir. But her ambition, once alluring, turned against her. I felt the tightening of the noose around her neck as I betrayed her trust, blinded by paranoia and the insatiable hunger for a son. As her head fell, I could almost hear the echoes of her laughter fade into the darkness, replaced by the haunting silence of my own making. Jane, my gentle soul, had offered me the promise of hope that I so desperately craved. The birth of Edward filled my heart with pride, and for a fleeting moment, I felt the weight of my crown lift. But fate was unkind. She slipped away too soon, leaving me with nothing but a son and the suffocating void of her absence. I mourned for a love that never blossomed fully and for the life we could have shared. Catherine Howard, the fleeting beauty, had dazzled me with her youth and vivacity. I had thought her the antidote to my despair. Yet I discovered far too late that beauty is often skin deep. Her betrayal cut deeper than any wound. The betrayal of a heart I had yearned to trust. I had craved her love, and I had lost it, much like everything else. Watching her meet her end, I felt a piece of myself die alongside her. Yet I could not bring myself to mourn openly. I had become a king whose heart was encased in ice, frozen by the choices that had led us both to this tragic fate. Then there was Catherine Parr, who had cared for my decaying body and spirit. She had been the last flicker of warmth in the freezing desolation of my life. With her nurturing presence, I felt a semblance of peace, yet I could not allow myself to embrace it. I had built walls so high that even her love could not penetrate. I had resigned myself to the belief that love was a weakness, a distraction from my true purpose. As I lay there, a king stripped of his power, I began to reflect on what I had become. I had spent my life captivated by the pursuit of greatness, yet I had emerged from that journey a tyrant. My desire for a legacy had turned me into a monster, each decision leading me further away from the very humanity I had once held dear. The blood on my hands was not just a reminder of the lives I had taken, but also of the love I had forsaken. I looked back on my life, and the truth stung like a bitter wine. I had been so focused on building an empire that I had failed to nurture the relationships that mattered most. The crowns I had placed on the heads of my wives had become shackles, binding us in a twisted game of power and despair. The echoes of my choices reverberated through the chambers of my mind. I had sacrificed everything for an heir, yet I was left with a shattered kingdom, a son too fragile to carry the weight of my ambitions, and daughters divided by faith. I could hear their cries, the pleas for understanding and compassion, haunting me like a refrain I could not escape. What kind of king was I, who wielded power like a sword, but could not mend the broken hearts around him? I had sought to rewrite the soul of a kingdom, but in doing so, I had rewritten my own. I had turned love into a weapon and loyalty into a bargaining chip, eroding the very foundations of my reign. As the shadows drew closer, I felt a flicker of resolution in the depths of my despair. My story, though tragic, could serve as a lesson for those who came after me. I wanted to believe that perhaps my downfall could illuminate the path for future rulers, guiding them away from the destructive pursuit of power at any cost. What if my tale could be a beacon, warning them against the folly of ambition untempered by love? I imagined the hallways of history, filled with echoes of my mistakes, a stark reminder of what can happen when one allows ambition to overshadow the heart. This kingdom, once vibrant and teeming with potential, now lay fractured, like shattered glass scattered across the floor. I had watched it crumble piece by piece, each decision I made carving deeper into the flesh of my legacy. My reign had been marked by beheadings, divorces, and bloodshed. Everything I had sought to avoid had become my reality. Yet, as the darkness closed in, I felt a surge of understanding swell within me. Maybe, in acknowledging my failures, I could find the strength to forgive myself. Maybe, just maybe, I could find solace in the knowledge that my story could bring about change. In the end, I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that love, true love, is the only legacy worth leaving behind. It is the thread that weaves the tapestry of life, binding us together in a shared human experience. I had sought power, but in my quest, I had lost sight of what truly mattered. As I took my final breaths, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over me. I was grateful for the love I had known, even if it was fleeting. I was grateful for the lessons learned, painful as they were, for they had shaped me into the man I had become. And in those last moments, I hoped that my story would serve as a testament to the importance of love, loyalty, and compassion in the lives of those who followed. Perhaps I would not be remembered merely as a tyrant, but as a king who finally understood the value of the human heart. In the shadows of death, I found a flicker of hope, the promise that even the most fractured legacies could lead to redemption. If you find yourself captivated by the tales of our past, I invite you to join me on this journey. Subscribe to explore the complexities of history, the choices that shape our destinies, and the enduring power of love in the face of tyranny. Together, we can unravel the threads of time and discover the lessons buried beneath the weight of crowns and blood. In the end, my story is not just a chronicle of ambition and regret. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is a possibility for healing, for understanding, and for a legacy that transcends the fleeting nature of power. Join me as we continue to uncover the timeless truths that history has to offer.